It's the hot spot. Tell them what you got. Welcome through the hot spot. Getting straight off the top.
See, it's like a balance beam. So, do you believe in God or do you not believe in God?
As I said, I told you, I believe in God through death.
I don't understand what that means.
I just told you what it means. If he puts a time limit on everything, then who put that time limit there?
Well, it would be God, yeah.
Okay, so that why if it was God,
but people could. So if there was no God, which I don't believe, but if there was no God, there would still be death. Because if we're going off of science, every atom has an expiration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every living thing dies.
And we do have data on there, right?
Right. So, but you wouldn't need God for that. So I don't understand where you're saying you believe in God because of death. It's like saying I believe in God because of apples. They're just.
But you said that we both just said that if God created everything,
mm-hmm.
He created the atom, I guess you would say.
So that's going on the foundation that God is real. You believe in God through death, which means God is real.
Mm-hmm.
So God is real.
Maybe they overlap with each other. I don't know. Maybe He created science. You know.
Well, science is just understanding. Science is not. Nobody discovered fire. Fire always existed. They just figured out how to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like electricity, AC, DC currents. It always existed. People just figured it out.
Atoms, right? You can't create fire, electricity without something to create it.
Yeah, you have to have a recipe. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But it wasn't.
So God
created.
didn't create electricity?
No, people didn't.
People didn't create electricity?
No.
So it was always there, right? So we can both agree
it,
that God created science and sort of. It kind of overlaps with each other.
I'm not saying He didn't. I'm saying science is just the understanding of what is.
Yeah. As
to the best of our understanding. You can ask Albert Einstein, why? And he'll say, because of this. Well, why? Because of this. Why? And you can say that a million times. At some point, Albert Einstein said, you know what? I don't know. That's where God comes in.
Yeah, because He is from the beginning. And that's how I believe. Like I said, there's a beginning and there's the end. God created all of that. That's how I believe in God. Like somebody had to create it. Right. Some type of higher beings. Like I said, I do believe there is a higher force. I am God-fearing. I don't put myself over anything. I believe there is a top of the order, I guess you would say.
So when I was asking, have you looked? And your response was, why would I look for something that's not there? That made me think that you don't believe there's a God or a higher being.
So it has to be there for me to believe?
Well, unless you are believing in nothing. The reason why I say do you look is because God, if you read the Bible, in the Bible it says those who go through my son, only through my son can you come to me. And then, like I was saying earlier, this is why some people go a different route, because there's a level of accountability that most people are not taking on themselves. Right. I was guilty of this for years. I always said, if God wanted me, He'll just let me in because He made me this way. He made me who I am. Therefore, it's His fault because He made me who I am. But the reality is, God didn't build human beings to be slaves and robots.
Right.
He said, I'm creating you. This is your life to live. If you want to spend eternity with me, here's a book. Here's everything you need to do. This is my word.
God created the Bible, or did man create the Bible?
No, God spoke. The Bible was a collection of stories about their interactions with God.
Okay,
and Jesus, right?
Who created the Bible?
Well, people they're a collection of books that people wrote. Yes. through their interaction with God.
How do we know that is actually true?
Well, we can go. That was another question I had, which always messed me up with going with church, because I said, well, the Bible has been changed. It's been this, it's been edited, this and that, this and that. I'm not on that level of explaining that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to pretend that I do and have all the answers. But if we choose a life separate from God on this earth, if we choose to live our life separate from God and we die and we do get judged, God's going to say, well, you lived your life away from me. So I'm going to honor your wishes and you can live away from me. The one who wanted to come near me, they're going to spend eternity with me in heaven.
But how do we know that?
Again, off the Bible.
But who created the Bible?
God.
God created the Bible.
Yes.
He actually wrote
the events that took place. No.
He actually made the Bible.
So you're saying who wrote the Bible? A whole bunch of people wrote the Bible, but the Bible was based off of the experiences with God and Jesus.
And people's experiences is what makes it absolute.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. Again, this is the going to the pharmacy.
I'm not
comparison.
questioning your beliefs.
No, I'm not offended by all.
You shouldn't be questioning my beliefs.
No.
But that doesn't, I'm not saying, in my own opinion, that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't think that my life should be dictated based on other people's experiences.
They are, though. because the law is dictated off of other people's experiences.
Yeah, that's true. But that is man-made.
The laws are,
yeah. The laws are based on experiences, and I understand. But we actually have data to prove the reason why we have those laws.
So again, we
don't have anything that says that there is an afterlife. It does. I do fear death. Okay, and as I said, if there is a heaven and hell, I don't know. Like I said, that what makes me fear it the most. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to hell because I didn't follow what he wanted me to do. Okay, because God is love. God says this. He gave us free will. He gave us free will.
Yeah.
So we should be able to make the choices that we choose to make.
You can, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we have a whole lot of chaos happening in this world. If he is there, okay, why isn't he not answering to those who are actually in trouble? Why is he not correcting the things that we have? But I question it because like I told you, I've become very objective. A lot of things about my life, I actually do focus on the now rather than focusing on the afterlife, because I don't know what happens in the afterlife. There's nothing telling me what does happen, and there's no scientific proof or data or any type of person who can actually just grab me and send me there and send me back.
Well, so this goes back to the whole thing I said about the pharmacist.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody operates off proof. They operate off evidence.
Right.
And there's evidence that suggests that if you go to the pharmacist and it's not a back alley somewhere, you have enough evidence to suggest that the CVS or the Walgreens is not going to give you a vial full of poison. They're going to give you a vial full of medicine, because historically that's just what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You don't examine the pills. You don't examine the medicine. You just take it and swallow it and hope for the best, right?
Makes sense.
Hope that the doctor did everything he or she was supposed to do, and the pharmacist did everything he or she was supposed to do, and we all take the medicine. But that's not based on proof. That's based on evidence. There's written testimony of over 400 people that Jesus was killed on the cross, came back to life 3 days later, and walked amongst the people. There's written testimony. That's evidence. That's not proof. I wasn't there. You weren't there.
Right.
But it's the same level of evidence as I trust the pharmacist to give me the right medicine. So if you're looking for proof, you're never going to find it.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you're looking for evidence, there's a ton of evidence.
Evidence of what?
That Jesus was resurrected.
Okay, no, I'm talking about God and talking about the afterlife. That's pretty much what I'm going through.
But God and Jesus are the same, right?
Huh?
Jesus.
I thought Jesus was
the Son of Man,
Son of God.
Right, but Jesus is God in human form. That's why he got crucified, because he said he was God. But you got to remember,
like I said, I didn't read.
That's why I say if you're genuinely curious, no. If you're genuinely curious, go look. I'm not miles ahead of you in this belief. You're here, I'm here. Okay. God's way over there.
Right.
So we're we're almost neck and neck, so I'm not miles ahead of you. I just believe. So I'm walking that way. You're here.
I'm not standstill.
You're like, what's that over there?
Why is he walking that way?
Yeah. What is over there? Yeah. Me, I'm like, yeah, what is over there? So I
actually started.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean,
walking the path. I hear you.
Yeah. So if you're genuinely interested, or if you're curious, even a little bit, it's all there. Get a Bible, read a couple things, and go in with the open mind that this could possibly be true.
Yeah.
Because if you go in closed minded, you'll rip it apart. And people do that all the time. That's why I say, have you gone looking for God?
No.
Because you're not gonna look for God thinking, well, I wonder if it's true or not. That's not looking. That's just thinking. But if you are generally wanting to know if it's true or not, just go look. I have no idea what's in your closet, but I know if I went and looked, I'd find out really fast. You know what I mean? So you're not going to know by just thinking about it. You got to actually actively seek.
Yeah.
And when you find Jesus, that opens a lot of.
I guess you can definitely say, like I said, I was probably 10, maybe 12 years old when I stopped going to church, really, because it was not until I actually moved with my mom. I mean, I went to church here and there, and I wouldn't say I did it just because I was, curious or interested in God. Sometimes I was following a girl, following this, where you find a woman.
I was invited to church by a girlfriend, so that's the only reason I went.
Yeah.
So
like I said, I can't really say I've been interested. I guess I've been more concentrated on being alive. I haven't really concentrated on what happens after. Well, I guess what made me God-fearing is that what does happen to me? Do I go to hell? And I've seen, like you said, maybe the whole propaganda or the narrative, you see what hell looks like, and that kind of makes you scared.
But
right?
again,
like, oh my
you
God.
got to remember, all these movies are just people coming up with things. Like,
but how do we know?
Think of it like this. Have you seen Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie about Queen?
No.
Have you seen the Tupac Shakur movie, All Eyes on Me?
I think I watched parts of it, or I know it's been a long time.
Every single biopic, documentary movie, it was a movie, with actors that look like the person they're trying to portray. Every single one of them, they made shit up. They had to change things around to tell a better story. Like, there was a part in the Tupac movie where Tupac reads a poem to Jada Pinkett, and because they were friends in the day, she said, he never wrote me no poem. Like, that didn't happen. In Bohemian Rhapsody, they got signed to this thing, and then he learned that he had AIDS, and then he did the Africa concert. He didn't know about his AIDS till months after the Africa concert, but they changed things up to make a better story. Mm-hmm. Who knows if hell is full of fire and the big demon monster, who knows it's just not a dark void where we're just punished forever. The Bible lays out a pretty nasty picture. If you go to the very, very last chapter, it tells you about hell on earth. It has all these descriptions and stuff like that. I would never base what reality is off of Hollywood. They're about the big motion picture and the artistic freedoms and expressions and stuff.
People to come in.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So
bring the crowd.
Who knows? I mean,
make the money.
On that, I have no idea what hell looks like. Mm-hmm. I have an idea based on what the Bible says in Revelations, but I have no idea. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff in the Bible I don't understand. And it's a great question to ask God when you get there. Like, what did you mean by this? I couldn't figure this out. There's so much information that can be easily found by just sitting down and reading a book. What people don't understand is I've even heard Bill Burr say stuff like this. God created Hitler. So in his mind, God's responsible for the Nazis. So in his mind, God's responsible for the killings of millions of Jewish people. And I'm like, that is such an interesting perspective to have, because God created everybody and we decide what we do. And based on our decisions, it decides what happens next.
Yeah.
So to say
that's where I'm at. I don't look higher and I don't look lower. I kind of just look at me, the individual.
Like I said, man, time is finite. Even if just for just a thought experiment. What happens if nothing happens after we die? And then what happens if heaven and hell is real? If God's not real, and I don't believe this, but if God's not real, nothing happens. We just die. Mm-hmm. So none of this matters. Nothing we do has any value at all. If the Big Bang is a real thing and we just all just happened, which is interesting because, again, Cliff Nechtel, my guy, he said, people need to believe that something came from nothing, that life came from non-life. There was nothing, and then there was everything. Just like that, the Big Bang, right?
Yeah. Big Bang Theory.
It's so hard to even grasp on that concept that evolution and all this stuff. Like, sure, things change over time, but the way they describe it all started with a single cell, and we just happen to be in the earth and just happen to configure properly, and we're this space away from the sun, and it's all perfectly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane to me. Like, everything just happened to work out that way. Like, it's just crazy to me. And then nothing, and then everything. That's more insane to me than believing that there is a creator that created everything. If there's nothing, there's no afterlife, there's no soul, there's no God, there's no heaven, no hell. That means everything has zero value because we're all what he calls cosmic accidents. We're not even supposed to be here. We just happen to happen.
I wouldn't say we don't. I mean, it's just because he doesn't exist, we have no value. It's just like you just said, we all have
ultimately, we have no value.
Okay. You say
and
that.
There's no right and there's no wrong.
Okay. I understand your belief, but again,
I'm coming from a logical standpoint.
Okay. I understand. Okay. You want to keep interrupting me? That's fine. But what I'm saying is that we exist. We found it ourselves of what is actually important, what we should do, and what is valuable, what we make value. Like I said, it's free will, then it's really technically up to us what we deem what is valuable and what is not valuable.
I'm going to mess up your head right now. If we, as human beings, determine what is right and wrong, that means right and wrong is subjective.
Okay.
That means that what Adolf Hitler did is neither right nor wrong.
I mean, we actually do determine what is wrong and what is
no. Well, that's up to the individual.
Yeah, exactly.
So me and you cannot definitively say that what Adolf Hitler did was wrong because it's subjective.
Right.
You get where I'm going with that?
Okay, I'm getting confused though.
You and I consider what Adolf Hitler did was wrong.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we're right for saying he's wrong because morality.
I think that's pretty much where we're at in the world right now. That's why I said chaos.
But
we are actually looking at.
But what that means is we can't say what's right or wrong.
There are those who are actually saying that he is not wrong.
Right.
And then do we have people who are saying, well, what he did was actually right because what's going on right now is that those who were killed are actually running a lot of things, a lot of industries, technical industries. They run the money. They are running the world,
right.
And they're running it the wrong way. They're creating a disorder rather than the natural order of things. So, but yeah,
but we cannot. No one can say that what anybody does is right or wrong because there's no foundation of what is right or wrong. It's all subjective. It's all based on perspective and interpretation, right? You and I cannot objectively say that what Adolf Hitler did was wrong. We can't say guy A murdered 20 million people. He's wrong. Like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Why is he wrong? Well, because he killed 20 million people and killing people is wrong. Who said that? Well, a lot of us said it. That doesn't make you right. Like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't make me right. If we're all just coming up with stuff, we determine what's right or wrong. It's all objective. It's all subjective. Therefore, there is no right or wrong. What you think is right, I might think is wrong. And then vice versa. Now, the question is between you and me, who's right?
How you say? Well, didn't you just say that 400 people created the Bible?
No. I said
based on their experiences.
No.
Well, I'm just saying, for example, what you just said, isn't
there 400?
Isn't that almost the same thing? There are witnesses who are saying he was wrong. Therefore, that must be right that he was wrong. So if you have 400 million people who witness actually talking to God or talking to, I guess, who made the Bible, and you're saying that they were actually right, then
no. Right or wrong is determined by God. The point I was making then was there's 400 people that witnessed God after he was killed.
Okay.
So that makes his story credible because he said, I'm going to die, but I'm going to come back.
So then when it comes down to Adolf Hitler, that's almost the same thing, isn't it?
No.
Because what he did was credible.
No, you're crossing wires right now.
Yeah, because I'm confused with what you're saying.
So God determines what's right or wrong. That's the foundation of morality.
Okay.
It's God's word, right? God said, this is right, this is wrong. So that's the foundation of morality. What is moral? What's immoral? We consider what he did as immoral or wrong, but it's based off of what God said is right or wrong. Murder, all that stuff, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's wrong. God said murder is thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
Right, it's a sin. But if you take God out of the equation, there's no foundation. There's no clear-cut line, what is moral, what's immoral. Now it's what you believe is immoral or immoral, and what I believe is moral or immoral.
That makes sense.
And they can be completely backwards. You can think Adolf Hitler was wrong and he shouldn't have done it. Some guy down the street, well, actually, Adolf Hitler was right. And that's not me saying it. I don't know. That's a weird thing to say out loud, but some guy can say, no, what Adolf Hitler did was absolutely right. Between you and that guy, who's right? There has to be a foundation of right and wrong, moral and immoral. And that foundation is God.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I don't want to keep going back and forth. I would question that part, but I think I'll just leave it there because, like I said, I didn't think we were going to get into religion.
Me either.
But
that's good,
I was just going to go there with just men outside of religion. Just focus on here and now, us alive. What is the most valuable thing? And yeah, I guess you were right. I did kind of mess up that question when it comes because you can definitely broaden that to so many things.
Yeah,
but
I get where you're going with that, but to answer honestly, that's why I said what I said.
Okay,
It's the hot spot. Tell them what you got. Welcome to the hot spot. Yeah, straight off the top.